Good morning. Welcome to Morning Oasis. I'm going to give you guys a second to come in while I get myself a little bit more situated. Whew. How are you guys? Let's see. Move that over. All right. I also need to plug in my headphones so that it's a little more clear. So, still just kind of getting myself together. Just a second. All right. Had somebody show up this morning needing some assistance, had my son come home from school with allergy outbreak. So today has been a little bit more chaotic of a start than normal. Okay, welcome into Morning Oasis, everybody. I hope you all are well. We have one card pulled scheduled so far. We have 2 slots open. Whoever would like a card pull. Good morning, Michelle. I was just talking to your sister about you, asking, have you heard from her? I haven't heard from her. I hope she's well. Let's see. So I have no idea. I have no idea where my cards are right now. My round cards in my little square box. Good morning, Kristen. I would love to pull a card for you. And we have dinner this Friday night. I am so looking forward to it. And let's see, Kristen. So that leaves one more card pull slot open. Perfect. Now we're all booked up. Okay. Let's see. So I'm going to do announcements real quick and then we'll do card pulls. We have all of the dinner with Jessie is booked up and I'm super excited. I love Thai food and I love meeting you guys and I can't wait to meet you, Kristen, and whoever it is that you're bringing with you. That should be so exciting and so fun. The slots are all still open for lunch at Jessie's. I'm going to be cooking for you guys. If you haven't had my food before, I'm a pretty darn good cook actually, and I can cook anything. So once we know who's attending, I'll decide what I'm cooking, and that's in my home. So you get to come here, be in my home, and we eat together and talk together. It's a little bit longer. I think we have that scheduled for 3 hours. It's on a Saturday, July 1st. So that's also coming up. Tickets are still available for that. It's a little bit more, but that's because you're paying for food and drinks and everything that you can possibly desire while you're here. I'll probably even make a little desserty thing. Usually people don't get to dessert because they're so full from whatever we've made for a meal, but we'll see. You can always take the dessert home. Let's see. The chakra workshop is available. It is now, we have 2 days left at this rate, and then it jumps up to the full price. So for the next 2 days, it's still, at $66. Then it jumps up to $111. After that, and Life Mastery. Life Mastery has already jumped up to its now full price. It is a full program, powerful program. If you like what you see at Morning Oasis, Life Mastery is actually a structured program to get you on your own doing this work for yourself, being connected. What I hear from my students after they've completed Life Mastery is they're connected to their guidance. They're getting streaming their own guidance. They are empowered and in control of their healing work, and they have an idea. They know who it is that they want to become, what they're going towards as they want to show up more and more. So a lot of my students who've taken Life Mastery end up building their own personal practices afterward and having a really clear idea of what that is and a much stronger foundation for it. If you're somebody who's had a high trauma background, Life Mastery is very powerful, especially when coupled with any sort of therapy work, to overcome those traumas and find ways and tools and techniques to overcome traumas. So that's also out there. We have just 2 days left on the 2-for-1 special. If you want to work with both Shauna and I in a joint session where we work together to help you do whatever it is that you need. We have tons of different types of sessions available. So you can either pick a pre-created session, or we can just do what it is that you need done, custom sessions. So that's going for just today and tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day that's available. Let's see what else. Oh, the HP Psychic Fair. So it's a metaphysical fair, and it looks like it is in full swing. It's going to be June 24th in McMinnville at an amazing yoga studio. It is posted, the event is posted on our Facebook page as well as our Facebook group. If you're not in the Healing Pathwalkers group and you love this show, I would strongly recommend that you join the group. That's where we post most of our stuff. And there's going to be so many healers. There's a Mayan abdominal therapy healer who also is a licensed massage therapist. She'll be setting her table up and doing work there. We have a dragon master who does Reiki fire, and he's truly gifted, Brian. You've probably seen some of his videos in the group, if you're in the group. I'm going to be there. Shauna's going to be there doing angelic healing and clearings. We've got, God, who else do we have? Oh, Sandy Caldwell is going to be there. She is a hypnotherapist and does art therapy as well. Amazing work. I absolutely love her. Her energy just bubbles joy. It's wonderful to be around, truly. We've got Teresa's going to be there. She does rune reading. She's a powerful, powerful medium, works with the dead a lot. So if you have any sort of connection with the dead that you would like to build or strengthen, she is your lady. She also is really a gifted communicator with guides and just helps to pull information for you that you couldn't possibly access. There are others, I'm just not thinking of them right now, so it's going to be really cool. We're trying to make a psychic fair that is different, that's really welcoming, and that doesn't have the feelings of just kind of a collective of, random people coming together. These are all people who've been brought together by what I've been building here for the last 4 years. Most of these people are people I've worked with for at least 1 year or more. They're people who I trust, who've worked on me, who've worked on people I know. So it's really a beautiful gathering. This is like a tribal community coming together to offer what they do. So we really wanted to try and make this be a different kind of experience. Good morning, Andrea. So that's all of that information. And I'm going to be today inviting people. So if you are on my friends list and you really want to make sure that you find out about this fair and you don't know how to find it, then just PM me and I will make sure that I send you an invitation. And we'll be posting about it as well. I'm pretty sure, I think what we've decided is to not charge an entrance fee to come in, but the practitioners are going to be charging between 20 and 30. I can't remember exactly what we've decided on for that. But each practitioner is going to charge the same. And this is a significantly reduced rate for what it costs to work with them directly, one-on-one in a private setting. So this is a way that you can try out these really powerful gifts and tools. If you haven't heard of Mayan abdominal therapy, apparently, which I haven't yet done it, but apparently it changes people's lives. One of my good friends was just over, and she had a friend who was a doctor who is that she works with, who is a naturopathic doctor as well as an acupuncturist. And when she trained in Mayan abdominal therapy, she stopped practicing as Western medicine completely, and only started practicing this Mayan abdominal therapy because she believes that's really what all people need in order to recover and become healthy. So they're literally moving your organs around and manipulating them and realigning things. I can't wait to have a session in it. I'm so excited. Okay, so that is all the announcements. Lynn, I hope you're in by now. I haven't seen you come in yet, but I'm going to pull your card first because you were requested yesterday. Ooh. Sorry, that was big. That was a big energy shift. Interesting. Oh, okay. I was like, why isn't any of these cards pinging? And it's actually my Shadowscape deck. that wants to talk with you. Shadowscapes is, I love this deck. It's my favorite tarot. Well, it's one of my favorite tarots, because now I've got to say that Circle of Life tarot deck is probably my favorite at this moment. But Shadowscapes, this is what it looks like. It's by Stephanie Pui Moon Law. And when they redid it, she just re-released it. She did, Barbara Moore was the author, and her booklet originally with this deck was like tiny. I mean, it was one, maybe two sentences to describe each card. It was a really small little hand booklet, and now they have this like novel. And I think that's Barbara Moore is that author. So that's the tarot deck that I'm going to be using for Lynn. Let me wake it up and get it tuned in. How is everybody this morning? Whew, I keep shifting. Yesterday was an interesting day here. We went on a long journey into the gorge, and we were we ended up getting stuck in so much traffic. It was crazy. All right, Lynn, you got the Three of Pentacles. The Three of Pentacles really, okay, first of all, it's a Pentacles card. So this is about money, projects, earthly things, a physical expression of creation. And it's about teamwork. It's about being able to have a partner you trust that can hold you up, and you can do bigger work that you couldn't actually accomplish on your own. And this is a big message that's coming through right now, and it's a huge part of why I have worked so hard to make Healing Pathwalkers a platform for all sorts of different people to come and work together, because when we're working together, we can create something so much bigger than one person is capable of holding, maintaining, or managing on their own. And this is really calling for you, Lynn, to take in that trust of that teamwork, of whoever your team, your partnership is. Bring it in and recognize that this is time to start building something greater than what you've been building in the past on your own. And you don't actually have to do it on your own anymore. And that's a hard thing for people like us to understand, because in general, most of us, our lives taught us to come into singularity, into aloneness. We've been taught by those around us to come into oneness because we can't trust them. They hurt us, they're deceitful, they're painful, whatever it may be in our history. And that was in order to teach us how to be ourselves. Because when we come into a collective, if we don't come into a collective as our unique self, as our individuation, and we're constantly trying to adapt into different people's modalities or other people's expressions or how somebody else shows up, well, then we're no longer showing up as ourselves. And that is a loss. I had a business coach tell me this one day, and it's truly the most powerful message that I got from the entire 6 months of training with this coach. And what they said was that if, you have to imagine, that's okay. Good morning. That you have to imagine that life is a potluck. It's a great big potluck. And everybody there brings their own dish to the table. And there are people that are at that potluck that cannot eat anything else that anyone else cooks. The only thing they can eat is what you prepare. And your dish, the unique dish that you prepare, and you're the only one who makes it, is the only thing that they can eat. And so those people are going to starve to death if you don't show up with your dish, with your meal that you're preparing. So it's incredibly important for us to really get into center of self. What am I here to do? Who am I here to be? How am I showing up in the creation and representing myself? And once you understand that, then the partnerships can come about, because you're holding your space and they're holding theirs. Now, if this man who's holding her up, if he were trying to do the work she's doing, he couldn't hold her up, right? He couldn't support her. So that's what's really important. Sometimes it's our job to support and hold someone up and be like, here, you can do it. Watch, go for it, do it. And sometimes it's our job to do it and be held up and be supported by others. So recognizing that as well, that's really important, Lynn. And that is a message truly for all of us, okay? All right. The next one, Ashley, you asked for a card pull. I really only do 3 card pull slots in order to make sure we have time for discussion and for meditation, but I would love to pull a card for you tomorrow if you would like. Just let me know. All right, Kristen. The goddesses want to talk to you, Kristen. Let's see. Andrea, you asked me about where did we journey. So we went, a friend of mine, Mariah, and her daughters, and my son. My son actually is the one who asked for the journey to happen. And so we went to the gorge. Our intention was to go to Ponytail, I always call it Ponytail, but it's actually Horsetail Falls, which is just beyond Multnomah Falls, if you're familiar with the gorge area. I like it because it's usually a lot less crowded than Multnomah Falls, and it's a stunning waterfall. It's right there on the gorge. Great, Ashley, I'll put you down for tomorrow. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful place if you saw the pictures. When we went, we pulled off, I think it was at Bridalveil Falls. We took an exit on the freeway for a bathroom break. And I was like, oh, let's just take the historic highway out there because then we don't have to backtrack. And it was really only, I think, 10 miles that we had to go. Yeah, that took us an hour and a half. It was crazy, so much traffic. So then when we left Horsetail Falls to come back to go to, thank you, it was amazing. It was really beautiful. When we left to come back towards Portland, and our next stop was going to be Rooster Rock State Park because there's swimming there, and there's a great little, I guess it's called a slough, an inlet where there's a creek that comes in and it creates kind of like a little bay in the river. And you can swim at it, and it's really safe. The current's very slow moving. So we get onto I-84, and in about a mile, we hit traffic, and it is literally at a crawl. I mean, you could have walked faster to Rooster Rock than we drove there. And it was only 6 miles that we had to go, and it took an hour and 45 minutes. We ended up pulling off and going to Dalton Park for about 45 minutes and just waited. Apparently there was a really big crash. I heard one person say it was a 3-car pileup. I heard another one say it was a 6-car pileup. There were people on the freeway turning around in the median, and this is I-84, and driving the opposite direction to go back to Multnomah Falls exit, to take that exit, and to go back on I-84 to an entrance to the historic highway to take the historic highway back. That is how bad it was. So we got off at Dalton Park. There was even one woman who just reversed. She went into the median and just backed up the whole way back to Multnomah Falls, which wasn't really actually that far. So yeah, people were like, we're not used to traffic like that. My friend Mariah, who had been down in LA a lot, she said, oh, this is like LA traffic, which is why I don't go to LA. Okay, so Kristen, we're getting a revisitation from a goddess energy that we're all pretty familiar with here at HP. It is the White Buffalo Woman, Unity. She's card number 58. Love White Buffalo Woman. I first met, not 58, 35, sorry. I was looking at it backwards. The first time I encountered White Buffalo Woman was when I made my buffalo drum. It was amazing, a powerful experience, and I understood exactly who it was that was really contacting me. Hi, Stacy, and helping me understand unity and come into unity. And White Buffalo Woman is a Lakota tribe's, what do you call them? Guide, spirit ancestor. She comes to really bring together the nations, comes into unity consciousness. So I'll read this, what it says here. Supernatural white buffalo woman visited the Lakota people and taught them to live in harmony. She came from the stars and gave people the holy Chanapa peace pipe. She taught them about Mother Earth, the origins of humanity, and the 7 sacred rituals. She explained the changes that will come to unite all the tribes of the earth. The rare white buffalo woman the rare white buffalo woman, her earthly manifestation, holds great symbolic significance. White buffalo woman returns to you now to remind you that we are all one family. Put aside your ego and differences and remember what unites us. Division is weak. Unity is powerful. Thank you, Stacy. The keywords: unity, peace, harmony, harm no one, caring, diversity, freedom, teamwork, healthy group dynamics, cooperation, peaceful accord, sharing, growth, solution orientation, and accountability. The shadow being when we're blocking her from coming in. Usually that's because we're struggling with disunity, war, harming others, totalitarianism, division, problem-focused, peer pressure, enemies, corruption, shape-shifting, and shifting blame and enslavement. It's enslavement. One of the things that pops for me about this card, Kristen, is you're coming into a group. You're much more strongly coming into this group dynamic with your own intimate personal group as well as with a larger group, a larger community at whole. White Buffalo Woman is very strong right now because we are, and you hear it everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere it's starting to come about, and it's coming through many different filters. That we are coming into the oneness of humanity, starting to recognize that all these pieces that divide us are only making us weaker. So when you find yourself dividing away from somebody, and that's kind of what we were talking about yesterday with conflict and war and fighting, and it was Memorial Day, remembering those who died fighting for these dividing factors. This is something humanity's been struggling with since it began, coming back into wholeness. So really, if you want to be able to do this more effectively, call White Buffalo Woman. Just imagine her. Ask for her support. Ask for her to come in and guide you and your community, whoever that may be, as your intimate community as well as your greater human community. Because it is time for us to come into oneness. It is time for us to come together, come into wholeness. And things that, divide us are really illusions. I've talked before in the past about separation wound, and ultimately I do believe it comes back to the separation wound. What is it that makes us feel separate from Source? And at one time it was really important for us to stay separate so that we could develop our unique perspectives for Source, just like we talked about just with the last card. When we first come into this world, we come in families where we feel like the outsider, the black sheep. We feel like nobody understands us, nobody really loves and supports us. We have these struggles. So many that I talk with have these same struggles. And it's coming into the wholeness again that is even more challenging for us because we didn't have good examples of unitied families and unified spaces and safe spaces to be that way. So call White Buffalo Woman to support you as you're building your tribe and building your space. I love working with her energy, and my buffalo drum is back right up over there on top of my shelf. I like to keep it up out of the way because I don't want anything to happen to it. So powerful, powerful energy, White Buffalo Woman. There was a while here where each time I pulled out the goddess deck, that's who was coming. So she works strongly with this group and this collective. Always present, I feel, in my guidance. I absolutely love her energy. And now I see why I was yawning, because when she comes in strong, she comes in. She's not messing around. All right. Michelle, your card pull is next. And let's see. Earth Magic wants to talk with you, Michelle. This is by Stephen D. Farmer. Again, I love his work. I love his writing. I really enjoy these cards. They're quite powerful cards. And, you know, when you're picking an oracle deck or a tarot deck, the most important thing is that you connect with it. So if you find yourself connecting to something I present here and you need any help in finding it, just contact me and I'd be happy to help guide you. Michelle, you've been shifting. You feel very different than the last time we connected energetically. Cool. I can't wait to hear about it. Yes, you can, Andrea. I would love to pull for you tomorrow. Let me write that down. If we get one more A name, then we've got all 3 A names. Triple A. Okay, there we go. Ooh, this is an interesting one. And just like the other 2, I have a strong feeling that many of you are going to connect with this card. Excuse me. A friend was over this morning and we were working very much on throat stuff. Ooh, strong, strong. All right, so you got Iceberg, submerged. I'm not going to read the full description of this card because it is a bit long, especially because I would like to read the full guidance from the card. But essentially it's talking about how an iceberg is submerged. 90% of it is below the surface. We only see the tip of the iceberg on top, but the bulk of it is underneath. And it's broken off from a greater shelf, a greater piece, broken into a smaller piece. And it's something that can kind of, you know, hit us from below. With icebergs, what's the most common thing that we think of, at least here, is the Titanic, sunken by this great big unsinkable ship, sunken by this one lonely iceberg. So whatever you suppress or deny and attempt to keep out of conscious awareness will show up somewhere, somehow. These are your shadow aspects. At one time, you put them out of your consciousness for a good reason, yet they remain contained by shame and guilt. Sometimes these submerged aspects of yourself are projected onto others so that they may mirror those denied or suppressed parts of you. And you may even harshly judge these characteristics when they're exhibited in others. Now is the time to allow these elements to surface and embrace them. These may make up some sort of self-expression, a secret dream you wish to accomplish, or even an uglier aspect that are difficult to acknowledge or accept of yourself. Whatever you have submerged deep inside of you, this is your opportunity to pay attention to those things and to welcome them to the family called you. Now, we talk a lot about this, especially if you go back to the Victimhood Week, which, gosh, is all the way back in January, or all along the way, you know, we bring this up. We are constantly confronted with ourselves in the external, and the parts of ourselves that we get confronted with in the external is what is operating under the surface, under our conscious layer. It's our subconscious reality that's emulating outside of ourselves. So when we are, if we are in a positive space, if we've worked on those shadow aspects, really embraced all parts of ourselves and allow the subconscious to just run and play free with joy, then that's what we see in the external. Very few of us experience that on a continual basis, because it is so difficult to see what's underneath. We have to leave our comfort zone and dive into the uncomfortable zone. We have to go down under our elements, down under what we're used to being, where we're used to playing on the surface and above, right? We have to get down into the depths, and sometimes that requires special equipment and training and preparation, right? We have to go underneath and get down there and see what's going on, and we have to be willing to be vulnerable. You know, the most vulnerable thing you can be is a scuba diver in the ocean, truly. The currents can sweep you away. There's things that can eat you. Your equipment can fail. And even if all of that goes right and you don't know that you can't go up faster than your bubbles, then you could hurt yourself, right? So there's so many things that you have to know. You're so vulnerable in that space, but that's where you get to explore this whole underworld. And it's time right now for us to all be exploring that underworld, because that truly is what divides us away from each other. We believe that nobody else could possibly love these subconscious pieces, this undercurrent of ourselves. So it becomes externalized, and it becomes that which we struggle with on the external in order to just move through our day. So don't let your icebergs hit you and sink your ship. Go down and explore them so you know where they are, and you can lift them up out from underneath that subconscious level. Because unlike an iceberg, you actually can do something about your subconscious terrain. All right. So, since yesterday was Memorial Day, and we were talking about speaking your truth and about warring, and what it is to be in conflict and why we come into that space of conflict, I thought we could continue that and talk about the rules of play. Because the reality is that you're not going to just go forward and never have another conflict again with anybody. Conflicts are natural. They're part of what digs up from underneath the surface, what we don't know is there. So I thought, what if we talk a little bit about how do we fight? How do we bring up these conflicts? How do we participate in that kind of a dialogue when our emotions and our subconscious behaviors and patterns are playing out in front of us, and it's really hard to connect into the conscious self that says, this is how I want my relationship to be. This is the dynamic I want to be in with this person. This is how I want it to look. And everything else is happening, and it's like, oh my God, it's not that at all. This is awful. So I thought it would be a good thing to talk about, like, what are the rules of play? My husband and I, as I've said before, we had to learn how to have healthy discord, right? How to have allowance for each other when we're in a space where, this is not the time to talk. If you talk to me, we are going to be fighting. So how do we do that? How do we do that healthy? How do we do that safely? How do we express ourselves and receive what the other person is expressing to us, which is the most challenging when you're in a struggle to express yourself. Oftentimes what happens is we believe that they aren't listening to us. You know, we often want to accuse the other person in a conflict of that they're not receiving us. They don't know what we're saying. They're reacting to what we're saying. And oftentimes, if that's your position, then you're also doing it. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else of that. And it is so hard to receive from someone when you don't feel like you're being received. So the instinct is to push back and to shove back and to create more space for yourself. But that's building more of a separation wound. So we tend to blow it all up, right? We blow up the situation and turn it into something much bigger than it was in the first place, because that creates the distance, that creates the safety, and that makes us feel like we're safe over here. And then the other person responds to the blow up with their own blow up. And so, see, we're justified in our experience. We're justified in our response. We're justified in our behavior. So with my husband, this was definitely our pattern for years, years. And it is something that I have worked with therapists. We've had many therapists. We each have individual counselors. We had a group marriage counselor. He has a group counselor that he works with men who struggle with this. So a lot of input. I've also studied this in my own studying of psychology and in my own interpersonal relationships, right? So this is where I'm coming from. This is what my background in this subject is. When we're in conflict with somebody, the moment that you feel like you're not being heard, it's time to stop and listen. Because when you feel like you're not being heard, you're not listening anymore. Your voice is going to get louder and louder to try to push your perspective and your point of view. And when that occurs, there is no longer a space. You don't have a platform for mutual communication. It's not there. Now is the time that it becomes a platform for self-communication and promoting the self-viewpoint and perspective, justifying the perspective and validating. Hello, Letitia. Nice to see you in here. So what we have to do is pay very close attention to what we are saying. Pause and listen to what we're actually saying. Because what we are accusing and projecting onto the other person, that's actually our issues. So if you find yourself in conflict with somebody and you hear your words flowing out of your mouth, pause and listen to what you've been saying, because that's going to give you the actual truth of your subconscious, your submerged iceberg. That's how you can actually know what you are working on addressing at that time. Pause and listen to what you've been saying. Then listen to what they've been saying. This is not to say that what the other person is saying to you doesn't have any valid truth, or what you are saying to them isn't valid or truthful either. They are coming to you as a mirror. So you guys are sharing all of what's being said. This is for both parties. You've come together as an opportunity to pull up something that the only way it could be pulled up is by a crash, a conflict, some sort of cataclysm to blow up the surface, right? To bring it up to the surface. The only way you can see all of an iceberg on the surface is if you blow the thing up. And it all floats up in pieces, right? So the other part about making an iceberg get blown up and coming into pieces is it melts much faster. All the subconscious things come to the surface and you can look at them much more clearly. So a blow up isn't necessarily a bad thing. We have to let go of the idea that we are bad or they are bad because we're having this conflict. It's actually a really beautiful opportunity. Oftentimes, people will have a fight with somebody for whatever reason, and then they're like, fuck them, I'm done, I'm out, I'm gone. I'm never going to let this person do this to me again. I'm never going to be in that position again, right? That's what I hear a lot from people. And I will be honest, there are some people I have had a conflict with and things have blown up and I have walked away. But in general, when I walk away from somebody, it's not in conflict. It's usually like, okay, all right. So I see where you are. I see where I am. We've already had the blow up. We've had the discussion. And now we really don't have anything else to do for each other. It's like it's kind of resolved and there's just no engagement anymore. It's like we'll try to schedule them with each other and something happens. Oh, I can't make that. And it just keeps being that way until we just kind of naturally move apart. That's the way I like to disengage from people, because then I know I have given it my all. I have worked until there's nothing left to bring up from the subconscious. One of the people that was just over this morning, we were talking about, do we stay or do we go? Do we stay or do we go? And I shared with her, with my marriage, I was constantly under this pressure. Do I stay or do I go? Is this marriage for the rest of my life or is this just for right now? God, there's so much conflict in our marriage. And I told her that what I chose, my choice was, I will never leave any relationship, marriage, friendship, partnership, parental relationship, in a state of emotional triggering. That is a responsive mechanism. When we are emotionally triggered, our conscious higher selves are no longer at the wheel. Our subconscious self is at the wheel, and our subconscious self is just trying to make the discomfort go away. That's all they're trying to do. Whatever I can do to make this not feel this way. I want to feel happy. I want to feel better. I want to feel joyous. And if you look at those people that are hyper-focused on light and joy and love and all of that, and they don't deal with the shadow stuff, they tend to be solo artists. They don't have lasting relationships. They don't stay engaged in committed relationships with people, and they tend to not grow. They tend to kind of stay in their patterns. If you go back 10 years later, they're still doing the same thing. They're still in the same place because they aren't taking up this opportunity to bring things to the surface. So, when we're in conflict, the first thing you do is pause, listen to yourself and listen to them. See what kind of iceberg, what's the nature of the iceberg that you're working on. That is really important, to see the nature of the iceberg instead of blaming the other person for what they're bringing to the surface. Look at what's brought to the surface. Thank them. They're giving you a gift. So don't make choices in the state of bringing the submerged to the surface. That's not the time to make any decisions about what to do with it. You don't know what you're dealing with yet. You haven't brought it up to the surface all the way. So allow this conflict to be uncomfortable and to sit in that state of discomfort, because that is how you actually break old beliefs, old patterns, old relationship dynamics that you're no longer wanting anymore in the first place. So we pause and listen. Allow the full iceberg to come to the surface. You know, I have had conflicts with people before where they try to shut it down. And they're like, well, I don't want to have that disagreement with you. I don't want to have that talk with you. I don't want to go there with you. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm going to keep going there because I want to bring the whole iceberg to the surface. I'm going to use this opportunity. You're welcome to go. That's cool. I'm not going to judge you for it. I'm not mad at you for it. I am grateful this came to the surface. So we have to allow that part to happen as well. When the other piece is allow the blow up to occur. Blow ups are not bad. Blow ups are scary. They're uncomfortable. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to blow up. Nobody likes to be blown up on. Nobody likes to be a part of a blow up, right? But the reality is that's how you break these rock hard belief systems and patterns that you identify with and that you are not aware of because they're submerged. They're under the surface. You may see the tip of it, but you've got to really blow it up to be able to break that up and see all the pieces and components of it. So, pause and listen. Don't make life-changing or relationship-changing decisions during the whole engagement. You have to wait until you have gone through everything and all those pieces have melted and they're all brought to the surface. And there's no longer an emotional charge, right? Your blood pressure doesn't rise while you're thinking of them or talking about the situation. You don't feel like you have to justify or validate positions or points of view. You don't have to. This is how we can tell if we're still emotionally engaged or we're still charged or there's still something that needs to be worked on. You no longer feel like you have to prove you were right. You no longer feel like you have to justify, validate. You don't have to have any more conflict. It's kind of like it's like a limp noodle. It's just there. And you're all, oh yeah, that happened. And you don't have any response anymore. There's nothing else you want to bring up. There's nothing else you want to throw out there. When that state occurs, you're emotionally level. Then see what it feels like to re-engage with the person. Then see if there's anything else to work on and allow that engagement to occur. That's the state you want to get to before you make life-changing decisions, okay? So pause, listen, allow the iceberg to come to the surface. Let the discomfort be there. Make an agreement with yourself that you're going to be uncomfortable for a little while and that that's okay. that's okay. That's fine. The other person couldn't possibly bring all of this up from the subconscious unless you loved them. You were engaged with them. You were connected to them. It's that might, right? Like in the card of the Three of Pentacles. You couldn't do that work alone. And when you see those people that are love and light focused, they walk away from anything that takes them out of love and light. Well, you just can't do the same kind of level of work if you're that way. You've got to be willing to get into the engagement. You have to be willing to do that. Otherwise, it's all going to crumble eventually. You're standing on a false platform. All right, so then the next step is, once you've had the blow up, take space. Take some time, because that iceberg, as it's all bubbling, all the little crumbly pieces are coming up to the surface. It's going to take up a lot of room on the surface. And you've got to go through those icebergs. And if you're blaming the other person and you're still in that engagement, that means there's other things under the surface that still need to be broken up and bubble up to the surface. We have to remember they are serving us in that time and in that space. That fight, that disagreement, that conflict is serving. Imagine if, let's just take somebody. We just celebrated, well, not celebrated, but remembered Memorial Day, right? And for me, I posted about it actually, because there was an artwork that was done about Normandy, where they did 9,000 bodies on the beach. They raked out the silhouettes to show what it looked like to have all those people dead on the beaches. And it's a really strong visual. I grew up in a military family, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines. I got family members in all of our armed services. So I grew up having to be really aware of what it is to be out serving and in service to the country in that way. And I grew up on World War II documentaries and World War I documentaries. My grandfather was obsessed with them. We had an entire wall of them. So I'm pretty familiar with what was going on there. But imagine if Hitler, right? So here's this big bad guy, which by the way, Stalin was way worse than Hitler. He killed way more people in his genocide of his own people, not just like people he thought of as separate from himself. So let's just look at Hitler. And what would it look like if Hitler, instead of going into isolation and rejecting and killing everything that was less than or separate than himself, had actually been able to sit with himself? Because who was he killing? He was killing people with disabilities, people who were ethnically well, it wasn't just Jews. Jews were a big part of it, but anyone who didn't subscribe to his belief system. There was a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses who were also put into those camps. Anyone with any sort of disfigurement or disability was put into those camps. We don't talk about that as much. Anybody who didn't look the part of a proper Aryan, which is blonde hair, blue-eyed, and have you seen Hitler? He looks nothing like the Aryans that he was so holding up as these godlike beings, right? So who was he really angry at? Himself. That is somebody who took the war with the self to the extreme in the external and was willing to destroy millions and millions of lives in order to do it, right? So that's really what it looks like when we don't allow a conflict to teach us about ourselves, but we keep it all the way externalized and keep it about how the other person has to just be gone, be out of the life, be dead, be destroyed. I know this is an extreme example, but I think it's a critical one, especially in this time and energy that we're in with Memorial Day just on the horizon, on the sunset, right? So we're still coming out of that space. When we separate away and we don't allow the engagement to occur, we can't grow. We can't break up the subconscious belief systems. We can't break up those thoughts. So we have 10 minutes left. I recognize that there are some new people here, and it would take me about 10 minutes to go through the full meditation of grounding and connecting. So I'm going to not do that today because I do think we need to work on this submerged iceberg that is being brought up in today's episode of Morning Oasis. So why don't we go ahead and we're going to do this a little more quickly. And this is a shortcut that you can use. I'm just going to feel for a minute. Yeah, many of you already have your own grounding and connecting techniques and practices. Go ahead and begin grounding your energy. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of my coffee and I want you guys to all visualize in front of you, if you struggle or are not feeling grounded, a tree. Just imagine that tree before you. See its tall trunk. See the branches reaching up into the light. See the roots dropping down into the earth. Just visualize that tree until it's so strong, so clear that you can feel that tree in front of you. And then I want you to step inside. Now feel that trunk around you, supporting you, holding you. Feel your roots dropping down with the trunk's roots, with the tree's roots. Feel them all mixing together as you become grounded with the tree's support and energy. Feel your arms and your crown opening up and reaching with those limbs. If you need to stretch to reach, do so. Oh, that feels good. And feel that wind blowing through your leaves. Just feel that energy moving through you, clearing. If you're outside, call the wind. Ask the wind to come and help clear and release. The wind is actually what moves the icebergs into position. Feel the sunlight shining down on your crown, that source consciousness, source energy, as you connect and open. We're inviting Source and Gaia to come in and to flow through. And just getting that flow. Feel those energies and frequencies flowing through the vessel, through your energy fields. Very good, you guys. Good. The tree is a powerful tool that you can use to support you in grounding and connecting when you don't feel like you can do it yourself. Good. Now I want you to imagine yourself in a boat, any kind of boat. Just see yourself in this boat, floating on the water, in the ocean. Let's say it's kind of a calm day, but there's gentle swells. There's some wind, there's some movement. Allow your boat to feel the swells of your life, your energy, your movement. And just get comfortable with that. If you want to move your hands, you've made your tree into a boat. You can. Sometimes that helps to physically make that energy and that movement. And now I want you to imagine off on the horizon, you see another boat. And this boat is holding somebody that you've been in conflict with. Somebody that you have had struggle or strife with in any way. Somebody that you maybe even have gone to war with. Just see that boat off on the horizon. Good. Now I want you to imagine that you see between the two of you an iceberg coming through. And this iceberg represents all the subconscious beliefs, thoughts, and patterns that are now being brought to the fore. And they're only being seen because you can see the boat of the other person is now obscured as the iceberg moves in front of them. You can't see their boat anymore. All you see is the iceberg between you. You actually wouldn't have even known that iceberg was there and not just the crest of a wave or the whiteness of the sky unless that boat of theirs had been obscured. So we thank them for serving in that way, to show us this iceberg. Now I want you to allow the conflict that you had between you. Imagine it's like a bomb, sticks of dynamite, whatever, a nuke, whatever it may be for you. Visualize that bomb that was the conflict that you had and put it on the iceberg in a very careful way so your boat isn't crashing against it. Maybe you have a really long stick. Plant your bomb on your iceberg. This big thing that you have no idea how big it could possibly be under the surface and that's dividing you. And let it blow up. See how the iceberg is beginning to break into pieces. And each piece that pops up to the surface has a belief written on it. What are the beliefs that this conflict has brought to the surface for you to see? And how big of a field does this new broken, crumbled iceberg need? Notice how the boats are shifting away to create space for this now broken iceberg. Don't view it as that person is leaving you and abandoning you. They're creating space for you to have the conflict within. Right? They don't want their boat sunken either. See how they too are planting bombs on the iceberg fragments and shards and blowing those up. Oh, we're so grateful. They're helping us. They're helping us make this less of an intimidating thing. And we're seeing more beliefs popping to the surface and ideas. Imagine that each of these shards of icebergs has a little movie screen and it's playing out a memory, or maybe written on it is a word or an idea or a thought that you have begun to believe about yourself at some point in your life. Something you believe happens to you. And just continue watching as this plays out and unfolds. And it shows you all there is in that belief, that pattern. And it just begins to melt away. And it becomes more of the sea that is the surface, more of the sea that is supporting you, holding you. Nothing to break your boat against, just something to float your boat on. And allow this process to continue until all the shards and fragments and pieces have been melted away. And there's no longer anything but open ocean between you and the other. Once that occurs, I want you to visualize yourself paddling towards the other. Paddling over, or sailing, or motoring. Bring the boats back together. Allow them to hitch up. Throw a line. As a crow flies right into my window. Throw the other a line and pull them to you. Bring them back in to your immediate surface, immediate surroundings. And thank them. Be grateful, truly grateful for their support and their help in removing this danger from the ocean that you sail upon. And they. And then allow the two boats to sail. Maybe they choose to stay together as an armada, or maybe one has different adventures it wants to go on. Maybe you want to continue looking for more icebergs. Maybe they want to go to the tropics. But recognizing that in that time and in that space, they served. And we're so grateful. So grateful. And as you come together in gratitude, then you can have a conversation about what your next step is. This is an exercise I would love for you guys to practice, and I as well will practice when we are in conflict with one another. Thank you for joining me today. Go ahead and stay watching your iceberg melting if it's still melting. I'll be here tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Have a good rest of your day.